You clicked because you've seen it happen, or you're about to. You drive up to a workshop you've trusted for years, and the man behind the counter shakes his head, looks at your car, and says 4 words. We can't touch that. Not won't. Can't. 12 cars now sit on a quiet list across the United Kingdom, and independent garages are turning them away at the door. Here is what I found. This is not about bad mechanics or lazy workshops. These cars were built on purpose, so that the ordinary garage down your road cannot legally or physically fix them. The knowledge to repair them was never lost. It was locked away behind tools, codes, and certificates most workshops will never be allowed to hold. I first noticed this in an old repair ledger from a Birmingham garage, where a mechanic had written a single line beside a customer's name. Sent away. Cannot open the battery. That one sentence sent me down a path through trade regulations, institute records, and a European law from 2002 that promised the exact opposite of what happened. By the end of this, you'll know which 12 cars to be careful of, why your local man is refusing them, and one quiet trick that still lets an ordinary owner take back control of their own vehicle this weekend. Let me start with the car that opened my eyes, because it should have been impossible. A modern electric hatchback, only a few years old, running perfectly, brought in for a small fault, and the garage refused it before the bonnet was even open. For years I collected old workshop manuals the way other people collect stamps, thick books from the 1960s and 70s, where every bolt, every wire, every clearance was printed for anyone to read. A man with a spanner and patience could fix almost anything. That was the whole idea of a car. It belonged to you, and so did the knowledge of how it worked. So when I heard that garages were turning away healthy electric cars, I did not believe it. I thought it was a story. Then I read the training rules from the Institute of the Motor Industry, the body that sets mechanic standards in Britain. To even touch the high voltage system on a modern electric car, a mechanic must hold a specific qualification. Level 3 for basic work. Level 4 to go deeper. Without it, working on that car is not just discouraged, it is treated as unsafe and uninsurable. Here is the number that stopped me cold. Surveys across the trade have suggested that only a small fraction of the mechanics in this country hold that high voltage certificate. The rest, tens of thousands of skilled men and women, are shut out of an entire generation of vehicles. Not because they lack skill, because they lack a piece of paper that costs money and time many small garages simply cannot spare. So the first car on the list is not one model. It is the wave of budget electric cars now flooding driveways, whose owners assume the local garage can help. Many cannot. The battery sits at a voltage that can stop your heart, and the law rightly demands training. But the training was priced and structured in a way that quietly cleared the field of small independents. Your trusted man is out, and the dealer, conveniently, is in. That felt like an accident of safety. Reasonable, even. But then I found the second car, and safety had nothing to do with it. This one was a premium electric saloon, the kind advertised as the future. A small crash, a dented corner, a battery that testing showed was completely fine. And still, the insurance company wrote the whole car off. Scrapped. Crushed. A car worth tens of thousands, destroyed over damage that would have been a simple repair on any older vehicle. I could not understand it, so I went digging into how these battery packs are actually built. And what I found changed how I see every modern car on the road. In older designs, a battery was a set of parts. You could open it, test a section, replace a module, and close it back up, but many of these newer packs are sealed, glued, bonded into one solid block, sometimes built straight into the floor of the car as a structural piece. There is no opening it. There is no replacing one bad section. If any part fails, or if a crash puts a question mark over it, the entire pack is condemned. Researchers and insurers in Britain and abroad have been raising the alarm about exactly this. Cars with very low mileage, barely used, sent to the crusher because a sealed battery could not be inspected or repaired. The waste is staggering, and the cost lands on you, first through the price of the car, then through your insurance premium, which climbs to cover all those needless write-offs. So the second entry on the workshop list is any electric car with a fully bonded, non-openable battery pack. Your garage cannot fix what it cannot open. The design itself is the ban. And once I understood that a car could be built so it could not be opened, I started to wonder how far that idea had spread into ordinary petrol and diesel cars too. The answer was further than I feared, because the third and fourth cars I looked at were not electric at all. Picture a common family car, a few years old, with a check engine light and a sensor that needs replacing. The part costs very little. The labor is an hour at most. Simple. Except when the mechanic fits the new part, the car refuses to recognize it. The sensor is genuine. It fits perfectly. But the car's computer will not accept it until the part is coded, matched by software to that exact vehicle, using a system that only the manufacturer and their approved network can access. This is called part pairing, and it has crept into cars quietly over the last 15 years. Batteries, sensors, headlights, cameras, even something as small as a windscreen wiper module in some models locked to the car by software. The independent garage can hold the part in its hand and still be unable to make it work. To finish the job, the car must go to a franchise dealer at a franchise price. I traced how we got here, and this is where the history gets sharp. Back in 2002, the European Union brought in something called the Block Exemption Regulation for motor vehicles. Its stated purpose was beautiful. It was meant to guarantee that independent garages could get the same technical information, tools, and parts as the big dealers. It was written to protect your right to choose who fixes your car. For a while, it worked. The 1990s and early 2000s were a golden age for the independent mechanic, but the machines got smarter and the rules could not keep up. As cars became rolling computers, the manufacturers found a new way to lock the doors. They did not hide the parts anymore, they hid the software, and software was a gray area the old law never imagined. So the third and fourth cars on the workshop list are the modern petrol and diesel models riddled with part pairing, where your independent garage is legally allowed to help you, but is technically prevented from finishing the work. Now, at this point, you might think this is all just complexity, the natural march of technology. That is what I assumed too, until I found who profits from every single one of these locked doors and realized none of it was an accident. Let me show you the pattern, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Every car on this list shares one feature. Each locked door sends you, the owner, back to the one place that charges the most: the dealer, the manufacturer, the approved network. The high voltage certificate that clears out small garages funnels electric car owners to main dealers. The sealed battery that cannot be repaired funnels you to a full replacement or a brand new car. The part pairing that blocks a simple sensor funnels you to franchise labor rates that can be 2 or 3 times what your local man would charge. I sat with the trade figures for a long time. The average hourly labor rate at a main dealer in Britain can run well over £100 an hour, and at prestige dealers considerably more, while a good independent garage might charge a half or even a third of that. Over the life of a car, that difference is not pounds, it is thousands. And the whole system, the certificates, the sealed packs, the software locks, quietly herds you toward the higher number every single time. So the fifth and sixth cars I want to name are the prestige German saloons and SUVs, the ones people stretch their budgets to own. Many of them now use encrypted diagnostic systems. To read a fault, clear a warning, or program a key, the garage needs a manufacturer-specific device and, increasingly, an online subscription that logs into the maker's own servers. No subscription, no access, and these subscriptions can cost small garages hundreds or even thousands of pounds a year per brand. A single independent workshop cannot afford to subscribe to every manufacturer, so they simply stop taking those cars. The ban writes itself. But here is where I need to stop, because I know exactly who is watching right now and thinking this has nothing to do with them. Maybe you don't drive a prestige German SUV. Maybe you drive an older, simpler car, or you're on a tight budget, or you've never held a spanner in your life and you assume everything I've said is for people with money and workshops and mechanical hands, this next part is for you especially. Because the most powerful thing I found in all of this archive costs nothing, needs no tools you don't already own, and puts real power back in your hands today. The first thing is, the free legal right almost nobody uses. Under the rules that replaced that 2002 regulation, and under consumer law in Britain, manufacturers are required to make certain technical and repair information available to independent operators, not just their own dealers. That means your independent garage often has the legal right to request the data they need directly from the manufacturer. Most owners have no idea this exists, so they never ask their mechanic to pursue it, and the mechanic, busy and tired, often does not push. Simply knowing this right exists and asking your garage the question can be the difference between a fixable car and a written-off one. The second thing costs about the price of a takeaway meal. A basic diagnostic reader, the small device that plugs into the port under your dashboard, can be bought for well under 30 pounds. On the vast majority of cars, that little tool will read the fault code that turns your engine light on. It will not do the locked manufacturer-specific tasks, but it will tell you whether that terrifying warning light is a dying oxygen sensor worth a few pounds or something serious. I cannot count the number of people who have been quoted enormous sums for a fault a 10-pound reader would have identified in 30 seconds. You already have a phone that pairs with these. You already have the port in your car. All you are missing is the knowledge that it is there. That was the moment the ledger line from Birmingham stopped being a curiosity and became a warning. Sent away. Cannot open the battery. That mechanic was not failing his customer. He was the last honest link in a chain that had been deliberately cut above his head. If this pattern troubles you as much as it troubled me when I first mapped it, I want to point you towards something I put together called First Fixes, Deep Habits, and System Complete, 3 short books that walk through exactly how these lock systems work, what your legal rights actually are, and the practical steps any owner can take before they ever set foot in a dealer. You will find the titles in the description below. They are written for ordinary people, not mechanics, and everything in them is drawn from the same archive research you are hearing right now. But hold that thought, because the pattern goes deeper than I had imagined, and it reaches into cars you would never expect. And the third thing is the oldest trick of all, and it lives in a place you already have in your home. The owner's manual, the fat little book in the glove box that almost no one reads. In the era those old workshop manuals came from, people read every page. Today, buried in that booklet are the reset procedures, the warning light meanings, the service intervals, and often the exact steps to clear minor faults yourself without paying a soul. The manufacturers still print it because they must. They simply count on you never opening it. Open it tonight. You will be amazed what you were never told you could do. So even if you own nothing but an ordinary car and a phone, you are not helpless. You have a legal right most people never use, a tool that costs less than a tank of fuel, and a book you already own. Hold on to that, because it becomes the key to the very last secret I'm about to give you. But first, the cars keep getting stranger, because the 7th and 8th on this list are refused for a reason that has nothing to do with electronics at all. These are the cars built with bonded aluminum and exotic structural materials. Certain luxury and performance models, and increasingly some mainstream ones, no longer have body panels you can simply weld or beat back into shape. They are glued and riveted using processes that require a specific certified body shop, special adhesives, and training that costs a fortune. A normal body shop that has repaired steel cars for 40 years cannot legally guarantee a structural repair on these vehicles. So, after even a moderate accident, these cars are far more likely to be written off, not because they are beyond saving, but because almost no one is certified to save them. I found insurance analyses showing that repair complexity, not repair impossibility, is now one of the leading reasons modern cars are scrapped early. The skill still exists. The certification, the tooling, and the approval have simply been pulled up out of reach of the ordinary shop. Same pattern, same locked door, same destination, the approved network, and the higher bill. Which brought me to the 9th car, and this one made me genuinely angry because it punishes people for the crime of buying an older economical car in good faith. These are certain diesels fitted with complex emission systems, the particulate filters and additive tanks and sensors that were bolted on to meet tightening regulations. When these systems fail, and they fail often, the repair can be so involved and so expensive that garages advise against it entirely. Worse, on some models the systems are so intertwined with the engine management that an independent garage cannot properly service or reset them without, again, manufacturer-level access. People bought these cars because they were sold as clean and efficient. Now they own vehicles that the ordinary garage dreads, that cost a fortune to keep legal, and that lose value by the month. So the 9th car is the aging complex diesel, refused not because it cannot run, but because keeping it right has become a specialist ordeal. And every one of these refusals traces back to the same route I keep circling. Somewhere along the line, the knowledge and the access to fix your own property were quietly transferred from you and your local mechanic to a distant, expensive, approved gatekeeper. Now, let me name the 10th and 11th, because these are the ones I believe you will see far more of very soon. These are the cars with subscription-locked features and over-the-air control. We have crossed into an age where a car can have heated seats, extra performance, or driver aids physically built into it at the factory, sitting there fully installed, switched off by software until you pay a monthly fee to the manufacturer. And the same technology that switches features on can switch a car's functions off remotely. If a fault, a dispute, or a software decision locks part of the car, no independent garage on earth can override it because the control does not live in the car anymore. It lives on a company server hundreds of miles away. Think about what that means. For 100 years when you bought a car, you owned the metal, the engine, and everything in it. Now, on these models, you own the shell and you rent the abilities. The 11th car on this list can be partly disabled from a keyboard in an office, and your local garage with all its tools and all its skill is powerless. This is the furthest the locked door has ever swung, and it is only the beginning. That leaves the 12th car, and I saved it for last, because it is not a luxury model or a cutting-edge electric. It is the one most likely to be sitting on your own street right now. The 12th car is any modern vehicle, ordinary and affordable, whose maker has simply stopped supporting older software or stopped making a critical electronic part. When a small control module fails and the manufacturer no longer produces it, and no independent has the codes to program a substitute, a perfectly sound car with a good engine and a solid body becomes scrap over one small, deliberately unrepairable piece. Garages turn these away with genuine sorrow because they can see the whole car is fine, but one dead chip that nobody is allowed to replace has ended it. And now I can finally give you the thing I promised at the very start, the secret that ties this entire mystery together and hands the power back to you, because throughout all of this research, one question burned in me. If the manufacturers lock the doors with software, who is fighting to unlock them, and is there a real, legal, workable way for an ordinary owner to get back in? There is. And I found it not in a rumor or a hack, but in law and in an organized movement that most car owners have never heard named. It is called the right to repair, and in the motor world it is more powerful than almost anyone realizes. Here is the buried piece. That 2002 block exemption regulation I mentioned did not simply vanish. It was renewed and rebuilt, and the version that governs the trade now still carries a core promise into the present. Manufacturers must provide independent operators access to the technical information, diagnostic tools, training, and spare parts needed to repair and service vehicles on fair and non-discriminatory terms. That is the law. It exists to protect exactly the local garage the whole system has been squeezing out. The reason it feels like the doors are locked is that most owners and even many small garages do not know how to invoke it. But the moment you do, everything shifts. Your independent mechanic has the legal right to request the diagnostic access and the technical data for your specific car. Parts suppliers exist who can source the components. Manufacturers would rather you bought only from them. And a growing network of specialist independents has deliberately invested in the very subscriptions and certificates I described, precisely so they can serve the cars the general garages must refuse. They are harder to find, but they exist, and they charge a fraction of dealer prices. So here's what you actually do this weekend with what you have. First, before you ever accept that a car is unfixable, get the exact fault written down, the specific part or module and the code, 10-pound reader, or ask the garage to write it on the invoice. Second, take that specific fault and search for an independent specialist in that make, not a general garage, a specialist. They are the ones who bought the manufacturer access and who fix daily what the dealer says needs a whole new unit. Third, if you are told a part cannot be obtained, ask directly whether your garage has requested it under the manufacturer's legal obligation to supply independence. That single question, spoken out loud, changes the conversation completely because it tells them you know the door is supposed to be open. The knowledge to fix these 12 cars was never truly lost. It was moved deliberately from your glove box in your local workshop into a locked room, and the key was renamed a certificate, a subscription, a code. But the law that guarantees your access to that room still stands, kept alive by people who refuse to let the old idea die, the idea that when you buy a machine, you have the right to understand it and to mend it. I found that idea sitting quietly inside a regulation everyone assumed had failed. It did not fail. It was simply forgotten, waiting for owners to remember it and use it. That mechanic in Birmingham wrote, "Sent away, cannot open the battery," as if it were the end of the story. It was not. It was the beginning of yours. Because now you know the doors were built to be locked, you know who holds the keys, and you know the single question that forces them open. If this stirred something in you, it is probably because you already sensed that owning a thing and being allowed to fix it are supposed to be the same right, and somewhere along the way, someone split them apart and sold half of it back to you. You are the kind of person who does not accept that a good car should die over a 10-pound chip nobody will let you replace. That instinct is right, and it is worth protecting. Now I want to hear from you. Of the 12, which one hit closest to home? The sealed battery that gets a good car crushed, the part pairing that blocks a simple sensor, or the subscription that locks features you already paid for? Tell me in the comments, and tell me which car you drive, because I read these and I am building the next list from what you share. And say where you are watching from, because the right to repair fight looks different in every corner of the country, and I want to map it. If you believe useful, hands-on knowledge like this was buried on purpose to keep you paying, then come stand with the rest of us who are digging it back up, one method at a time. Follow along, because the next thing I am opening from the archive is the short list of everyday household appliances built with a deliberate weak part, a single component designed to fail just after the warranty ends, and the 2-minute check that tells you which ones to avoid before you ever spend a penny. That door is next, and I am about to open it. You clicked because you've seen it happen. Now let me show you the rest. Inside the Old Way Society, I pick up exactly where I just stopped. And if you have a question about your own car, you ask me, and I answer you myself. No robots. Thousands of Old Ways folks like you are already in there with me. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen, and you can cancel any time.